Hi, and welcome everyone. Thank you for joining today's webinar, where we'll showcase how we've reimagined the web experience for both marketers and developers in this latest Sitefinity version 11 release. My name is Rosemary Getz, and I'm the Senior Marketing Manager for Progress across Asia Pacific and Japan, and I'll be your moderator for today's webcast. Joining me for today's presentation are two of our key experts across the region. I have Joe Rosenberg, who's our Principal Solutions Consultant, and also Seth Cleaver, who's our Senior Technical Engineer. Just before we get started though, I'd like to cover a few housekeeping items. We have muted all lines for today's broadcast, but we will be showcasing a live Q&A at the end of the session. So please feel free to submit your questions at any time throughout the webinar, and we'll answer them towards the end of the presentation. You can easily submit your questions into the question panel that is located to the right of your screen, and we look forward to hearing your thoughts. But now, without further ado, I'll hand over to Joe, who will take us through the latest features. Hi, Joe.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sitefinity 11 release webinar. So what we're going to be discussing today will just be an overview of some of the new and improved features of the latest release for Sitefinity, as well as some of the motivation behind those features. Through the webinar, what I'm going to be doing is giving you just a brief summary and a description of some of those features, while my colleague Seth will be providing further details and a series of demonstrations. So let's take a moment and review Sitefinity. Starting from the left, when we think about content management as how you would manage and create content in a scalable fashion, this could be across website portals, which would include mobility, as well as any multi-channel experiences. Then continuing through the experience management, such as our Digital Experience Cloud, which expands the capabilities of our CMS to provide tools to drive and optimize the personalized digital experience that customers are demanding more and more today, as well as tools to provide analysis of those experiences. Then finally, the enterprise capabilities of our platform, which allows you to manage content at scale, manage multiple sites, which could span multiple channels, as well as including multiple languages, and then provide continuous delivery of those sites, as well as the ability to deploy them anywhere, whether that's going to be on-premise or in the cloud. But before we get into the actual features that are included within Sitefinity 11, I just wanted to provide some additional background on how we approached this release. What we did is we took a look at the market and what changes we noticed were trends in the market that we thought were going to fuel the next iteration of driving these personalized modern digital experiences. We had a look at our capabilities and how we could make it easier for marketers, content creators, as well as developers to not only just do their jobs, but to make them heroes within their organizations. What we did is provide features and capabilities that allow them to create unique and smart content in a scalable fashion across these dynamic environments that they deal with on a day-to-day basis by using a platform that is not only easy to integrate, but is also secure. So when we think about Sitefinity 11 for marketers and content creators, we've really delivered a set of functionality that we believe will help them manage content faster. And for those developers and IT administrators, they can now create more dynamic experiences in a secure way with more control. So now let's talk about some of those individual capabilities. However, the main theme of this release was productivity. So as we've been discussing, that there's going to be changes in the market that are really making managing these complex environments much more difficult. So to improve productivity for a marketer, content creator, and even the developer becomes much more important. As these individuals come to the platform to collaborate, what we wanted was to enable them to do this at scale and leverage technology to do this in a much more efficient fashion. So the need to deliver these experiences are becoming more challenging, and in order to help them alleviate this, what we wanted to do was to deliver tools that will help them drive that will drive making this more efficient. In an effort to make everyone more productive, what we did is we set out to create things along the lines of productivity, security, ease of use, as well as improving the learning experience to make the platform easier for anyone to learn. Now we're going to just talk about some of these improved features, beginning with the interface features. The first one of those is going to be the advanced content search with custom filters. What we did is we improved the search experience by creating a suggest as you type selector to provide hints as you create content. We've also improved this experience with an infinite scroll to really look at how you look for these items and how you want them to appear in the search. You can also filter them as you go through your search. To help you manage bulk content or bulk content at scale, what we did is we've improved the bulk actions, such as enabling you to send a bulk number of items to translation all at one time, or you can send a bulk number of items for approval. This is making the experience of content creation much more efficient and allows multiple individuals to go through this and enable the content creation process. We've also optimized the content locking and sharing, where previously when someone wanted to view a page, whether they made changes or not, it would automatically lock. Now with the improved optimized content and locking, the content won't be locked unless someone actually starts making changes to that page. This way multiple people can view the content without having it locked. Now that we've discussed some of those interface features, we're going to hand it over for Seth for a demonstration.
Hi everyone, it's great to have you on board today. Right now you should be seeing my dashboard of my Sitefinity installation. So if you're not familiar with Sitefinity and it's your first look at Sitefinity today, this is typically the first screen you see when you log into the back end. Now, ever since its inception, Sitefinity has had the mantra of ease of use and the drive to create the most intuitive CMS interface on the market. Indeed, it's the reason why I chose to move to Sitefinity years and years ago before I worked for Progress, and the reason why customers choose us today. The new admin interface keeps us leaps and bounds ahead of the competition in this way. And so we're going to have a look at this interface today. Now, if you've just started your Sitefinity project or embarking on a new Sitefinity project in the next couple of months, and you start off with Sitefinity 11, the new admin interface will be activated right away. If you're upgrading from a previous version, then you're gonna have to activate the interface yourself. So to do that, you go to the administration menu, you choose the switch new interface on or off item from the top of the menu there, and this will give access to evaluate your current activated modules within your Sitefinity project and give you an indication of what modules will be able to be compatible with the new interface. To turn on the new interface, you simply select switch to the new interface and it'll be active. Now going back to my project now, you'll notice the dashboard is exactly the same, and indeed a lot of the interface is still the same, except for a lot of the structured content such as news, blogs, your dynamic content modules, and things like that have been activated with the new interface. Now, some people might like to switch back and forth from the old interface. Typically, I like to just work within the new interface because it's much more improved experience. Now, if I'm one of those people who want to stay on the old interface, I can do that in my profile by clicking my profile image up in the top right-hand corner. By the way, that's not me. But I can turn the new interface on or off just for my personal profile. So this is a great feature. So let's go and have a look at the new interface. I'm going to go and work use the news module now, which should be familiar to a lot of people who are currently using Sitefinity. Now, the thing to remember with the new admin interface is that it's actually a single page application run by Angular. So what we're doing in the back end here is we've got the traditional Sitefinity interface and we're loading an individual admin application. Now, this has got some major advantages. What we're finding is that content is not just living inside a website anymore. We're actually got lots of instances where people are using content from within Sitefinity in mobile applications, in other applications that are not, promotional type websites, and lots of different places, devices and things like that. So we're finding more and more that Sitefinity is a storage place for your content that you're disseminating out to the web and to other devices. So A lot more people are working in these content modules because it's the place to store and work with content rather than just pages by themselves, which is the traditional way of working with the CMS. So now we've got a great new experience here. So we've really focused on productivity, as Joe had mentioned. We can use the search, of course, which we can search right across all the news items in this particular instance here. So let's just go for native script, which is our mobile technology. You may be familiar with that. So I've got a number of news articles that are written around native script here. I can of course clear that. I can, so rather than the traditional paging here, we've got the ability just to load more into our list here as we scroll down, rather than flicking through the old style paging interface that people are used to, I guess. So this might be a lot more familiar to people using modern applications. We've got the traditional actions menu that we used to have here. Plus, we've got some new filtering capabilities within the back end here. So I can filter on languages. I can arrange what sort order I'm going to have things in. I can say, okay, which things are in draft. And indeed, I can actually build my own custom filters as well using the custom filters option. So I might want to, for example, look at the last, couple of weeks at what's been published. I can filter the list by that. I can then add in perhaps a status of what's been unpublished, and I don't think I've unpublished anything at the moment, but we can remove that if we like, and maybe we can just change to draft, for example. There we go. We can now see all the draft items that are published since the 1st of June. So you can create these custom filters on the side here. And so it's much more geared to working at content at scale. We had lots of users who worked with not just 10, 15, 20 news records or content items in their modules. They might be working with thousands of content items. And so we really needed to improve the experience for these types of users. Let's jump into an actual content item detail. So let's jump in here. I'm going to look at the Progress Launchers AI-driven chatbot. You might want to check that out. It's just something we launched a couple of months ago called Progress Native Chat. And this is now the interface for editing modular-based content. You'll see on the right-hand side here, on the left-hand side here, a sections menu where I can quickly jump through the different sections within the module. It'll actually fully expand each item as I click if I like. So this is just a much better experience to just flick through the different sections that you have put together through your module. Of course, we support the typical fields you used to have in modules such as categories. So if I want to, I can create a category tag here. So I might go progress, for instance. And if I press enter and the category is not created, we'll go to a new interface here, which just helps us to focus on what we're doing. And I can choose whether I want to add the new category to the top level or under any one of the current parent categories. The experience here is similar for tags. For example, if I wanted to add in something like progress in this one, I can just simply do that and continue on. We really tried to focus on making the content editing experience intuitive and really quick. You might be familiar with adding things such as related media. So we've got those sorts of fields supported in the back end as well. And we've got a new interface for selecting images. I can either upload an image from my computer or I can select from the library within Sitefinity. We can, of course, browse the libraries that we have here. So here we have all the libraries currently in the system. If we, for example, used the default library, we can browse through the images there. Now, previously, the library was quite limited because we cropped every image to a square to allow people to peruse the current images in the libraries. We found that really restrictive for users. They wanted to see the whole image when they are selecting an image, so we really changed that up. And so now you've got this more modern style of image gallery that allows you to pick the correct image for your particular situation. So we're going to use this particular one here. So that's a great experience as well. Of course, that supports multiple images depending on how many images you've set for this particular field here. Now, we've got the content area here for the main content of the item. We're not going to focus on that in a minute. We're going to come back to that and have a look at the unique features there. The other thing that we should mention, though, is that we've now got this interactive interface where on the right hand side here we can browse through all the articles in our system. So if we again search for native script, it will browse through and we can flick easily between all the content items. Now, this is really a vast improvement on the previous experience, and the reason is because we had a lot of feedback about the content locking situation we had previously in the old interface. And if you're not familiar with that, when you edit an item like I'm doing here, that would immediately lock the content for editing. Now I might go away for lunch, or I might leave for the day, and I might not have finished off and closed this particular item and gone back to the list, and that would leave a content item locked in the system. Now, if I didn't have enough rights, I would have to then go and find an administrator if I was a person who was wanting to work with the item after somebody had left it locked, and that administrator would have to unlock it for me, possibly losing changes. And so this sort of experience was one that we got a lot of feedback on, that people didn't like, was causing a lot of problems. And so now we've created this hot swap type of situation where content locking only happens as soon as you start editing an item. So this means that I can flick through any of the stories in our news list here, and it's not until I actually start typing, and if you watch the right hand side, you'll notice as soon as I start typing, that content is then locked for editing. As soon as I save that item as draft or I publish it, it is immediately unlocked for editing. So that's a vast improvement on the way we lock content for editing over the previous interface, which is really going to help content managers, I think. You've also noticed we've really opened this up. We wanted to really help people with productivity, make it really rapid to type. We wanted maybe to get a lot of users to find Sitefinity the preferred way of editing content and creating content. Previously, a lot of people would create content in Word because it was a more familiar, open interface for creating content or textual-based content. So we're hoping with this new interface where we've got this very nice white interface with nice wide open space, that'll really help people just to create content, fresh content in the system rather than using an alternative and then copying and pasting it in. Another change we made is that previously when you published an item, you would immediately go back out to the list. We had some feedback from users that said that they just wanted to continue being able to work with that item rather than continually go out to the list and then back in. So we've changed that situation there. You can publish items and continue on editing or doing what you like with the system. Now, that's just about it for this particular part of my demonstration. It is worthwhile noting that because this is an Angular app, there's a separate team within Sitefinity who was working on a different release timeline. So this particular section menu here was only released 2 weeks ago, and I had access to it via the hotfix releases we do, the internal builds we do. So as soon as a feature is available and done the required testing, you will have it immediately available to add to your admin app within Sitefinity, and it's not tied necessarily to the quarterly release schedule that we have for the full application, which is great because we're producing new features all the time. I'll hand it back to you, Joe.
Thank you, Seth. That was a great demonstration of some of the new interface features. And now what we're going to do is we're going to start talking about some of the new content editing features. So now, as you can see here, the new content editor has a much more modern look and feel, and is also designed to allow anyone to create and deliver content as efficiently as possible with a more familiar word processing style interface, as well as what we refer to as a progressively discoverable experience. Now, you're going to be hearing those words, progressively discoverable experience, quite a few times through this presentation. Now, when we say progressively discoverable experience, what we're referring to is really a new way of presenting contextual menus and tools that are now actually embedded in the experience and much less distracting than they used to be, and allows you to edit or create content and remain in the content area. Now, as you can see from this screenshot here, someone is actually creating content, and when they click on the image that they're trying to embed, they easily get a context menu for them to manage that image. They don't have to leave the content area, and these menus appear when they need to, and then they disappear when they don't, providing much less distractions and allows you to view the content as you want to. The next feature is the dynamic link wizard. Now, by looking at some of the feedback that we received about the actual content creation experience, one thing we wanted to improve was the process for interlinking content items. Now, when you insert links into content, the references will actually remain the same, and the risk of having broken links in your content is greatly reduced or actually removed. So now when you move content, the links themselves won't break, and they cognitively change reference to ensure that their content consistently stays up to date. The next thing is content media management. So once again, we wanted to make this as easy as possible. We also wanted to make the content creator, give the content creator the ability to select from images as they needed to embed into their content while not actually having to leave the content area. Just like in the editing stage, this is a progressively discoverable experience where you can easily embed media within the content. What this does is add more space to edit files, and you can actually easily insert media that perfectly complements the content that you're creating. We also added other tools within this experience, such as an improved image selector, where you can now create groups of images. There's also a responsive view for the image selection, with when you start typing into the search, you can actually see a suggestion for the types of media, as well as allowing you to easily drag and reorder these. There's also a social media wizard. What this does is allow content creators to actually easily embed social media into the content, such as Twitter or YouTube, or any other content that is easy to iframe, and it's basically just as easy as pasting a link. Once again, this experience is also progressively discoverable to allow easy insertion. The last feature we're going to talk about for now in the content editing experience is a brand new HTML editor, which is based on one of the best open source tools out there, Visual Studio Code. Now, with the click of a button, it allows you to make code changes and then within your HTML, and then just go right back to the previous content area. And now that we've seen we've discussed the new content editing creation features, we're going to see a demonstration from Seth.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, so now we're going to dive into the content editing experience for the main content block within a module. So on the left-hand side now, you'll see the old interface. And if you're not familiar with that, we'll show you what that's like. But if you're familiar with that, you're pretty used to seeing this sort of thing. On the right-hand side, of course, we've got the new interface with our article that we've been working on chatbots. Okay, so one of the things we wanted to do was really help with productivity. So previously, the content author was really constrained by this text area here that we typically use for content or content blocks, what we call content blocks. And so what we wanted to do is really open this up so that content writing was a lot easier, more natural, more familiar for those people using word processors. And so you're not now constrained by this whole text box idea. As we click in here, the content will get expanded and we can work on our article. Now, the next feature we're going to have a look at is the new linking manager. So previously, when we worked with the old interface here, we could use the link manager. Now, this was not too bad. We could put in here web addresses, we could link to email, and we could link to pages on our site. So at the top here, we could link to any of the sites in our particular instance we have here. So in this particular case, I've got 4 different websites in this instance of Sitefinity, and we could go through and link to a particular page, such as development, and I could insert that link. Now, the problem was that was that a lot of people wanted to link to things like news articles, blog posts, module-based content that generates pages on the fly within Sitefinity. And so this means that the content-based modules content didn't live in the page selector, and so it was typically very hard to link through to these types of content. Well, now we've vastly improved that. So let's go over onto our new interface here. We'll link on the human interaction word here. We'll use a link manager from the toolbar. If I insert a link, such as one to sitefinity.com, Sitefinity automatically detects that that's a URL. It's going to be an external URL, and I can open that up in a new window if I like. However, if I want to, for example, link to a page within Sitefinity, we've got this new interface here that allows us to link, as we did before, to things such as another page within Sitefinity. However, the exciting part is that now we can link to any other content within Sitefinity. Images, documents, news articles, you name it. It's all there for you to link to, and Sitefinity manages those links again, manages whether the URL for those changes, etc., etc. And so we have got a lot more options when it comes to linking to content. So let's link to a news article. We'll search through our thing. We'll go for native script, and I'll select to work with this particular one here. And you'll notice here that now Sitefinity has detected that this is a news article, and we're linking through to that. So let's insert that link. Now we wanted to also improve the discoverability of options within Sitefinity in the content here. So this is where we've coined the phrase the progressively discoverable interface items. So here when we click on the human interaction link, we get an automatic a link here to actually view that link to see what we're actually currently linking to. We can edit the link, we can break the link. Previously, we had to right click on these sorts of items and choose properties. So it wasn't very intuitive, didn't give us many options here. And so you really had to know what you're doing. So we're hoping that this really helps content authors to just intuitively click on the item that they want to work with and then edit it right away. Now this whole experience extends to also inserting other media. So if I go down here to this evolve word, and I'm going to insert an image now, we'll have that new interface for choosing an image either from our library or uploading an image. So I'm going to upload an image. Here we go, the chatbot image here. We'll just call this chatbot, and we'll paste it into or put it into the default library. So let's go use this image. Now you'll notice down here that Sitefinity is uploading this image as I'm working on the article. So I no longer have to wait for this image to upload. It'll do it in place. I can continue to work with the article while I'm waiting for that particular image to upload. Of course, we've now got the contextual menu. When I click on the item, I can either insert a link, which will invoke the link manager. I can edit the item, so let's go and do that. We'll change the size of it to 500 pixel width, and we will also put it to the right hand side there. So this is a vastly better experience than the previous experience where it was a little bit not quite as smooth as it is now. Now the really exciting part is the social media embed tool, and that's got some really intelligence built into it. So either on my other screen, I'm just going to quickly get a link to a YouTube video, and let's use the social media embed tool here. We'll click the item, and I'll paste in a simple YouTube link. So this is a YouTube link. Sitefinity is then analyzing that link, understanding that it's a YouTube link, and giving me some options to insert that link straight into the content. I didn't need to create an embed link or embed iframe from YouTube and all that complexity that goes with it. Of course, it's easy for some of the technical folks around, but for standard content managers, just being able to paste a link in there and then have Sitefinity automatically work out what sort of content that is and how it's going to work is a great addition to the interface here. Now this also extends to things like Twitter feeds, for example. So if I go up to here, I go into a Twitter feed here on native chat, and I want to insert this particular tweet here. So let's go and copy the link to the tweet. I'm going to go down to the bottom, insert use the embed media tool, paste in my link, and Sitefinity will automatically then work out, okay, this is a Twitter link, or a tweet. This is the interface for a tweet, and I can insert that just as easy as I did with a YouTube item or an image or anything else. Again, contextual menu to be able to work with that item. So yeah, it's a much improved experience, and that supports a whole lot of different social media links as well. Finally, for those power users, we have a great new editor for HTML. So previously in the old interface, sometimes we'd have power users who needed to do some HTML manipulation, and so they'd have to flick across to the HTML editor here. Now you notice there's no code highlighting, there's no help. It's quite hard to use that interface. You know, not particularly difficult, but just didn't have any tools for helping me work with HTML. So if I'm a power user, I'm going to love the new interface that we've got here. Like Joe mentioned, we're using the Visual Studio Monaco editor, which is a great improvement on this current experience that I have on the left-hand side. So let's go up to our menu here on the top right-hand corner and select the HTML editor. Now you notice straight away we've got line numbers helping me to code. We've got code highlighting. We've even got IntelliSense. So for example, if I need to write a new paragraph down here, I'm going to get a prompt. It's going to show me my tag options. It's even going to tell me, you know, how to insert a class. I just need to press tab. I don't need to do all the writing anymore. And we can continue on our way, and Sitefinity will even prompt us to close off the tag there. So this is going to be a great experience, I reckon, for those content managers who need to jump in, do some extra content, HTML editing for more advanced options. Right, so that's it. New HTML editor, new content editor in Sitefinity. I hope you like that. We'll hand it back over to Joe for the next section.
Thank you, Seth, for the demonstration of those brand new content editing features. So now that we've discussed things around content management and creation, what we're going to do now is discuss some of the additional productivity tools that we've added to help the developers. The first of those is going to revolve around security. Now, as we know, security is becoming more and more difficult to manage every day. There are new threats that emerge, and it takes a lot of work for organizations to manage all of those. With this release, we actually became the first CMS that provides an out-of-the-box support for HTTP headers. What this does is add another layer of security and protection because it uses the HTTP response headers to actually configure the web clients. What this is allowing administrators to do who can control these headers through configuration settings is starting to prevent things like cross-site scripting, quick jacking, etc. Now, on our website, we've also provided some videos and some white papers, which can not only provide best practices that are related to web security, but also references how Sitefinity leverages or prevents these security threats. Now, along the lines of developer productivity, what we've done is increased our focus on MVC development. Now, the Model View Controller methodology, or MVC, is our recommended approach to creating code. And anyone who's been following along with our blogs and as well as our documentation knows that we've been talking about this more and more. And with this release, what we've done is we've shifted all the MVC wizards to be sorted first, as well as improving the resources and documentation to also having MVC first. In addition, what we've done is added a detail view to our content widgets. And web form widgets are also available within Sitefinity. Now we're also happy to announce the VSIX, which is a brand new tool that is compatible with Visual Studio and is actually a Visual Studio extension. What this does is provide a command line interface tool that actually helps developers do small things like automatically creating code scaffolding for different widgets. And the best thing of all, it's open source. What we're hoping to do is make the platform more extensible and easier to integrate within developer teams. Now, along the lines of improving our extensibility, what we've done is actually add an SDK for the admin app. And what that does is allow you to leverage modern API services that are out of the box from any provider. including we've improved our search services within Sitefinity, and all of this should allow you to improve the search experience. Now, to give us a brief demonstration of all of those new features, we're going to hand it back to Seth.
Thanks, Joe. Okay, so on the Visual Studio Marketplace, we now have the Sitefinity Visual Studio extension. So this now replaces Sitefinity Thunder. Sitefinity Thunder is still relevant. It's great, I guess, for doing a lot of web forms-based coding. But if you're into MVC and starting to use that a lot more, then the Visual Studio extension is the place to go, and download that from the Visual Studio Marketplace. With the download, you'll get the Sitefinity CLI that'll automatically be installed, which is open source, as Joe mentioned, and of course the Sitefinity Visual Studio extension itself. Of course, this is for developers. So I'm switching across to Visual Studio now, and what this does for me is, we've got the situation where we've got to create perhaps a new resource package, maybe a page template, and other things like that. And now we have some new options from the Sitefinity menu on the Add menu. So if we go to right-click, Add menu, Sitefinity, you'll see that we can now create resource packages, page templates, grid widgets, straight from the handy menu here. So this will help hopefully cut down some time on creating some of those things where you typically had to go back to GitHub to find those particular packages and stuff like that and download it, etc., etc. Now, this is obviously just the first iteration of the Visual Studio extension, and we want to bring some more goodness to the table, and so you can look out for that in the coming months as we release more features for the Visual Studio extension. Switching back to the browser now, another thing that Joe mentioned was, of course, the ability to extend the admin app. And with that, we've brought out under the Sitefinity GitHub repository a repo called Sitefinity Admin App Extension, which gives you some examples that you can look through. So you can download this, maybe clone it or download it, run npm install to install the node modules with tool there, and you can run the admin app as a separate application on your local host and develop new extensions for that. Now, this is something that, of course, people have been doing in the previous interfaces, but now we've got the ability to rapidly build extensions for your particular projects to take care of things like maybe custom field types, etc., etc. So let's have a look at that. I'm jumping into Visual Studio Code now, which is my preferred editor for working with Angular-based applications. You'll notice at the top here, I have a grid extender. I'm not going to go through this in detail because you can look at the repositories yourself. But basically what's happening here is this is a component that simply grabs a collection of images. Typically, you'd be using maybe images out of a related images field that's in the current content module and makes it available in the grid view so that your content managers can see that. So I'm just grabbing a collection of images and randomly assigning them to that grid view, but it's just a good example, I guess, of how you can extend the grid with minimal lines of code. The next one is a bit of a cognitive extension or an AI extension that we have using the Alien API to do text analysis on the content block within the new UI. So once again, I'm just calling a bunch of services. I've got a couple of services that I've created that will call the Alien API for me, and to enable those in the bundle that this creates, we just simply declare in the export method here those particular extensions, and they should be available. So let's quickly run npm run build. That will create a bundle for me in a distribution folder within this project, the top there, in a second. We can then just copy and paste the bundle into the new admin app folder within Sitefinity, and on next application recycle, that will automatically be available. So let's go. We'll have a look at the distribution folder that's been created for me. And there's just 2 files here. Just need to grab them, or I can just grab the JS file. I'll just grab both in this case. Head over to my Quantum app here. So this is the project that I'm working in, that we've been doing the demo in. And there's the admin app folder, which is a new folder that does all the new interface. And all I need to do is simply paste that into the interface here. Now, going back to my Sitefinity project, I'll head over to the news module. Now, all going well, on the right-hand side, we should have a new grid column in the grid list here, which will show an image. So now I've got a new column saying image, and there's my collection of random images, including, of course, an upside down kitten. Right, so now that's how easy it is to add an additional column. You can go to town there, and really your imagination is the only limit. Let's go into the content area. So here's the article we were looking at before with our content edits, inserting of images and things like that. When I click in to the content, I've now got the new analyze text option on the right-hand side here. This is my new extension. What it's doing in the background is using the Alien API to analyze this content and give me some feedback on how my writing skills are going. So let's click that button. It's come back. It's given me some sentiment analysis, told me the polarity of my writing style, the subjectivity. Currently it's subjective. It'll tell me whether it's objective, how much percentage. It even gives me a suggested summary that I could use in my summary box. I might use that. If you're a developer, you might want to add a little button here to add automatically the content that's being come back from the service down into the summary box here. Just give some nice features for content managers. It's also given me some suggested hashtags and also suggested categories for this particular piece of content. So this just helps us to just show off, I guess, some of the AI tools, the cognitive tools that you could be using within your Sitefinity project. This particular demo is available on Sitefinity blogs right now that you can download. You can actually sign up to the Alien API yourself and use this tool if you like. I've actually done some extra cognitive goodness with this little project. What I've done is I've used the Azure Computer Vision. I've written an extension that looks to the upload image event, analyzes the image using the Azure Computer Vision API, and then provides alternative text and categorization for images automatically. So this is the one that I uploaded before. So let's go and have a look to see whether that's worked as well. So I guess this is the new place that people are focusing on, this cognitive AI technologies that can help us write better content, create better content, cut down on menial tasks such as writing alt tags and things like that. So let's head over to the images module here. And hopefully, all going well, my image has automatically been tagged. You might remember when I uploaded the image, I deliberately left the alternative text field blank so that when this image got sent to the Azure Computer Vision service, it would automatically be given a alternative text, and it has a group of people looking at a cell phone. It's multiple cell phones, but it's close. But I mean, this is just a sample of a way you could use AI services within Sitefinity. Alternative text is a good one because I see a lot of projects where people actually have been a bit lazy and haven't written the alt text fields. So it's something you could do to bring a little bit of AI goodness to your project. And also it's automatically tagged with person. Now, often that brings back more tags than that. But in this particular case, I've just got one tag, which is person. Okay, so that ends my demo today. I hope you've enjoyed the demonstrations and see the possibilities we have in the new admin app.
Thanks, Seth, for the demonstration of those developer capabilities. Now, the last capabilities that we're going to discuss are around compliance initiatives. Now, the first thing that we want to talk about regarding compliance initiatives would be GDPR. Now, it's necessary to point out that a tool cannot be GDPR compliant, but it is the customer's responsibility for not only GDPR compliance, but anything regarding their local legislation and any compliance initiative. Our tool provides capabilities which you can use for these compliance strategies. In addition to other compliance initiatives, the first thing we'll talk about is around our digital experience cloud. The first thing that came with Sitefinity 11 is a really secure handling of customer storage and data. Additionally, we support right to be forgotten initiatives by making it easier for these organizations to find and share personal identifiable information. Now, as it relates to compliance initiatives with the CMS, we published a white paper around this personal identifiable information, or PII, that's available on our website, and it provides guidance as far as how you can handle this information, as well as references to where this information is stored. And we've also provided a consent form widget. Now, just to provide a recap, we've gone over some brand new content interface features, such as the advanced content search, the bulk actions, and especially the new optimized content locking and sharing, which will improve the entire content experience. Along those lines, especially the brand new content editor, which is a more modern look and feel that includes things like the dynamic link wizard and wizards for social media, as well as brand new methods of content media management, the new HTML editor, and of course, our progressively discoverable experience. Now, along those lines of developer productivity, we've got a new focus on MVC development, brand new plugin. We've increased the extensibility of the SDK. We've also enhanced our security. We've also added capabilities around compliance. Thank everyone for attending our webinar today, especially my colleagues to Rosemary and Seth. And now what we're going to do is open the floor up to the audience for questions.
Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Seth. That was great. I'm loving how we've reimagined the experience for both marketers, content authors, and developers alike. I'm loving the HTML code editor, the contextual menus, and the ability to add in those cognitive services are pretty exciting as well. Let me just quickly look across to some of the questions and let's have a look. So there a question's coming around the admin app. I think, Seth, this is for you. So with the new admin app, are all of the custom field types supported for content modules?
Okay, Rosemary, yes, they are. We have, some of you might remember there is an address field within the dynamic modules, and that's supported by the new admin UI, and all the other field types are supported. One thing to remember is with the address field, I mentioned this one particularly because it no longer has the Google Maps integration there. Unfortunately, Google Maps has changed some of their requirements as far as licensing goes, and so you know, we now could not include that as part of the tool set there out of the box. But certainly the address field still exists, and hey, the backend UI is extensible, so you know it's certainly within your rights as a customer if you've got a licensing agreement with Google Maps to implement the mapping straight back in there.
Thanks, Seth. So another question around the admin interface. Are there plans to bring the SPA approach to other areas, such as the page editor?
Can you hear me? Currently, currently we're still working on the page editing experience for the SPA application. I think that'll probably, there's a lot of challenges there. We really want to make that friendlier for people using tablets and you know, finger-based inputs. So we've still got some challenges to work through there. We want to make that experience just as nice as it has always been for content managers. So the next thing we're working through is some of the extra modules such as images, events, such etc., etc., and eventually the pages area will be part of the refresh as well.
Okay, great. Another question that's coming through is around the admin, again with the admin app again. Using the older, is it using the older Sitefinity WCF web services or the newer OData services?
Oh yeah, so the new admin app is using all the new OData services within Sitefinity. If you haven't checked them out, we've got a separate front end set of these, but they're just using the standard out of the box one, so you can actually create your own using the admin interface to create your own web services using the OData tools. So it's not using the old WCF services that we had around for the old interface. And so it just shows, I guess, the capability there of the new OData services that are out of the box with Sitefinity for using in native script mobile applications and other applications with other technologies, perhaps SPAs of your own that you need to create for your customers that need to have content. I think the options are endless there. So it just shows the capability that we've got in the new web services.
Okay, perfect. So a question that's come through is around the audit trail module. Is that still only available in the Enterprise Edition?
Yeah, the audit trail module, no licensing changes have been done in version 11. It's still only available in the Enterprise Edition. And there's another question there, I think, on the same thread there, Rosemary, on the native support integration to the new Progress chatbot. The chatbot, it's mostly JavaScript. It is JavaScript, the web interface for the native script, the native chatbot. So I mean, there's no massive need for any sort of integration services with Sitefinity. I guess if you want to pull content out of Sitefinity into the chatbot, you can actually just use the OData services, which I've done, didn't we, Rosemary? Actually, at a conference, we used the OData services with the chatbot to provide a competition that had information pumped into it from Sitefinity. So you have got some integration options there. And I guess, again, your imagination is your limitation.
Great. Another question's come in around, upgrading from an older version to Sitefinity 11. So, are there major changes on the interface and logic-wise, or are there, would there be any major concerns that could break the functionality?
No. So my only concern would be there is if you've actually done some customizations to the UI for the modules that you're upgrading. So, say you'd created a custom field type in your news module. That, of course, will break the interface there because you're using Ajax and .NET traditional type of development practices there, and we're using all Angular. So unless you have that sort of customization, you're really not going to experience any major issues with the backend interface or the new backend interface. And so it should be a fairly straightforward upgrade. Again, if you do have any issues with a particular module because you've done some customizations that you haven't been able to bring across to Angular, you can turn those off just individually. I wouldn't be too concerned though. Yeah.
Okay. Thanks, Seth. If you still have further questions around that, reach out to us and we can probably have the conversation offline and dive into more detail with you. One other question I have here is around the text analysis. It looks really interesting. Is there any cost involved there?
The great thing is, of course, I mentioned before that there's a blog post available that just was released last week, I think, with the actual sample for this, including the code. All is required is for you to sign up to the Alien API text analysis web service, and actually it's got some quite generous limits on its free subscription, which I don't think you'd go over, or it'd be very hard to go over in a standard CMS project, I reckon. So yeah, you can take advantage of that today, go and grab the code, open up an account, and I reckon you'd be pretty good with the free service they have there to offer.
Perfect. I don't think I've missed anyone. If you do have any further questions that you'd like to dive into a little bit more, we'll be sending out an email tomorrow with some contact details so you can reach out to us, or if you already have our contact details, by all means feel free to reach out to Seth or Joe or myself, and we'll make sure that we answer every question that you have. And if you need us to come in and and sit with you and work through some things, then we can do that also. Thanks everyone again for attending today's webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. There's been some great comments in the window, so I thank you all for those comments as well, and have a great rest of the day.